All right, we are now recording, apparently. So, welcome to the Kubernetes community meeting for today, which is May 11th. So, first up on the agenda, we have a demo from the OpenCompose. So, why don't we jump right into that?
Hey, hi guys. Hello everybody. This is Pradeepta here. I am here with my teammate Shubham. We are going to demo the thing. Can just let us know if you can see our screen. Do you guys see?
Just black for me.
Yeah, I can't see anything.
Hold on. How about what? Okay.
I think your prompt is a little too close to the top of the screen, but I think it was still showing a terminal.
It is now all green for me.
Yeah, I see a green screen.
Do you guys need a few minutes to try to get things working on your end? Oh, I see a cursor now.
No. Won't work. Yeah. No. Hey guys, I just move ahead with the meeting. Let us try and fix it with one of the other laptops out there.
All right.
Hello.
So let's go on to releases, and we'll come back to you guys later if you get it working. All right. So for first up on releases, it looks like we have Dawn talking about the 1.7 release.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. And so a couple of things I want to mention for this week. So last week, right after community meeting, and we fixed the build tool, and then we have the alpha 3 cut and send out alarms to the community. So thanks Charles, our branch manager, to cut those, spend the time to fix the build and also cut the release. And please help us to test those alpha release. And we plan to cut alpha 4 for the 1.7 next Wednesday. So this is on schedule what we are. So if you have some feature you want to be included and be tested as early as possible, so please make sure you merge before that time. And that's the current schedule time is next Wednesday. So this is related to the current testing release. Another one, it is one of the takeaway from the 1.6 retrospective. It is we should cite the upgrade test suite as early as possible. So we listened the request. So we already have all the upgrade tests set up. Like for example, upgrade test for 1.5 to master, 1.6 to master, and all those kind of, and also downgrade from the master to the previous release. So the test is available. All the test suite is available. You can take a look at the test grade. So there's the upgrade to master school test suite. People can take a look at those things. And also our upgrade test lead, Jeff, is to start monitor those test suite. So currently we are talking about, since we already have those available, and we want to capture those problems as early as possible and also resolve. So we are started talking about maybe we put those upgrade tests, choose some incur upgrade test to our PR build blocker. So, but this is not finalized yet. So if we finalize, we will send an email to the community. So another one is, Iho, our release feature manager, send out announcement to the spreadsheet for the 1.7 feature tracking board for the Kubernetes 1.7. Please, we expected, we hope all the SIG group lead or the representative help us to fill that tracking board so we can centralize the information, what kind of features you request, and also at the same time, and our doc lead, Andrew, start to track those kind of information, and based on those, and talk to engineer, because we have the new structure proposed, the Kubernetes.io new structure, and to propose for this release, and try to reorganize the whole doc set. So we want to start the doc tracking and also doc process as early as possible. So this is another thing we want to the community help us move forward. Finally, it is because I personally also been doing bad. So I want to mention that because we used to have the experience, engineers send the implementation right before the code freeze, feature freeze, and also reviewer kind of, because everyone is busy, and the reviewer also wait for last minute review all the PRs. So I just want to, I also personally doing bad job. So needs just to figure out, please. So we want the community help us to help make this process, the feature development and the review process more healthy, so we can start the development as early as possible, and also track as early as possible, and review as early as possible, so we can also even test earlier. So that's all I need. Garrett, do you want to feel something more?
No, I think that's good.
Thanks. That's all for the 1.7 release. Any questions?
Right. Thanks very much, Don. All right. Looks like no questions. Let's move on to 1.6 with Anthony.
I can feel him because we just talked yesterday. So Anthony actually already built the 1.6.3 patch release yesterday. So please help us to help us testing. And that release includes several really important fixes. And so that's all.
All right, awesome. So go out and test the 1.6 release. 1.6.3 release. All right, and finally we have 1.5 with Martin. Is he here? Is Martin here for 1.6?
Very quiet.
Is Marcin there? I couldn't hear.
Marcin's not here.
Yeah, I think he's in Poland, so I'm not sure that he's able to attend this meeting. I'm going to talk to both Marcin and Anthony and find out what is the best way to make sure that the updates for these releases is given to the community. Because I think this is like the second time running that we haven't had updates, and that's not good. So I'll get on that.
All right, awesome. Okay, so next up we have SIG updates. So let's move on to SIG-Apps.
Hey. Can everybody see my screen okay and hear me okay?
Yep.
Great. All right, so SIG-Apps is almost 1 year old. We had our first meeting last year on May 18th. Since then, we've had 42 meetings. 2 of them have been in person, and we've had 42 technical demos. And up until now, the SIG has been a place to talk about developing and managing Kubernetes applications or applications for Kubernetes. We also make this a place to provide feedback on the app's experience. This is also a friendly place to start your Kubernetes journey. A lot of what we talk about is higher level tools on top of Kubernetes that help people with the app's experience. And we also keep up with and champion Kubernetes workloads, features, and improvements. So this is a very small subset of those features and improvements that the whole list is very lengthy and detailed, and I'm happy to provide a link to that if anybody is interested. Currently, there is an open PR for switching deployments to a new hashing algorithm to avoid collisions. There's also an open PR for moving cron jobs to beta. And there's also an emphasis on fixing flaky tests. SIG-Apps also houses several umbrella projects. So there are 7 or 8 of them, but I'm just going to run through like 5 of them today pretty quickly. First one is Helm. That's probably the biggest. It officially graduated from the Kubernetes incubator process in February. We have regular releases. Our last one was last week. Our next one is probably going to be in the next several days. We have a very fast-growing community right now, which is really awesome. We're very excited about it. But we also have some growing pains that I just wanted to mention here today because they should sound really familiar to this group of people. So first and foremost, we're having some trouble keeping up with answering questions in the Slack channel just because of the sheer volume of questions being asked. But it's been really nice to see other Helm users kind of jump in from the community and help us answer the questions. We're also working on our contributing process. So we've started pairing with new contributors who have, somewhat bigger pull requests to ensure they have everything they need, to make sure that their pull request is successful. We're also pushing our CI to the limits. So we're wondering if we should move off Circle CI and kind of figuring out what we should do there. That's an ongoing project. We're also figuring out how our core team should process, how do you add a core team member? What's the official process for removing someone who's been inactive? We're also working to better our documentation as well, because all of the documentation lives in the same repository as the code. And so we're working on creating a website for that and making that more user-friendly and nice to interact with. I didn't have time to mention all the technical details for the last few releases of Helm, but I did want to call out Helm plugins because we'll see a little pattern in the next few slides. So Helm plugins allow us to extend the functionality of Helm for personal use cases or for the use cases of a particular organization. And recently, Adam Reese of the Helm team led an effort to create a Helm plugin management system. So now you can manage and share Helm plugins more easily. So that's been really cool too. Compose is a tool for moving from Docker Compose to Kubernetes. It's also a project that we house. It's formally in the incubator process, making monthly releases, and is close to graduation. App Registry, which initially started out as a spec for pulling, pushing, and discovering Kubernetes apps, turned into, it was previously called CNR, turned into App Registry. You might have heard Brandon talk about it at Cloud Native Con. So now you can officially push, pull, and discover Kubernetes apps through Quay using a Helm plugin that you can use to log into Quay, push charts to Quay, install charts from Quay. And this effort was largely led by Jimmy Zielinski and his team from CoreOS. And so that's been really cool to see. They're also working on a Quay UI integration and a Compose integration. The official Kubernetes charts repo is also growing really fast. So there are currently 70 stable charts, 9 incubator charts, and over 70 open pull requests for new or improved charts. So clearly this group is also facing scaling challenges. They've added several new chart maintainers to their team to help with those pull requests. They also have grand plans for CI and testing. And if you missed the last SIG-Apps meeting, Vic Iglesias gave a great presentation on like common chart patterns and best practices for charts. Lastly, on the charts repository, if you haven't seen kubeapps.com and you're interested in like search and discovery of the official stable charts, then check that out. It allows you to easily discover and download charts. And it was built using an open source project called Monocular. So if you have your own private chart repository and have been thinking about creating like a UI for it, check out Monocular. You don't have to do that by yourself, and you definitely don't have to do it from scratch. App Controller allows you to, is another project, and it allows you to like install resources in a particular order or with some sort of like parent-child hierarchy. So basically when you define your Kubernetes resources, you can, predefine this like order and hierarchy, and it'll create a resource deployment graph, which then you can, then it'll like execute on that. So they're also progressing, they're creating a Helm integration, they're adding more examples, they're improving documentation. They've also, that team, Mache leads that effort, but he also created the ability for Helm to have like server-side backends, pluggable backends. So that's how they're actually implementing their app controller integration. If you have more questions on that, there is a demo and QA session at SIG-Apps on May 22nd. OpenCompose we'll hear about today, so I won't go into too much detail on that. So we're going to continue doing all the things that we've done. There's also an emphasis on writing less YAML. So different people in the group, like different organizations, there are different efforts being made to kind of like solve the same problem. So I've listed a few of them here today, and there's an emphasis on like talking about and comparing these different efforts in the SIG and seeing if there's any way we can consolidate efforts. Logistically, we're still doing weekly meetings. We alternate between 2 different meeting formats. So one week we'll do a demo and stand-up, and then the next week we'll do a demo and a discussion topic. Our meetings are slotted for an hour, but usually they end a little bit early, so they're about 45 to 50 minutes each. As you can see, the scope of the SIG is very large, and we've talked several times about splitting the SIG, but it never made sense because of all the cross-project and cross-team collaboration that's going on. So instead of splitting the SIG, I want to mention that we added a new SIG-Apps co-lead. His name is Adnan Abdulhussein. He is an engineer at Bitnami. He's a chart repository maintainer and lead. He has lots of experience defining and deploying different types of applications on Kubernetes. So Matt Farina and I are very excited to welcome him and his expertise to our team. And going forward, we'll just iterate on what we have, more discussions around best practices and patterns. We have different types of people who come to this SIG. So it could be, in-depth, like, in the weeds Kubernetes developers. It could be people who are building the higher level tools. It could be someone who's deployed their first app on Kubernetes. And so setting really good context, setting very clear context on around the demos and discussions has become increasingly important. We're also working on making sure we have good solid feedback loops and more detailed notes, and making sure that our meeting formats are satisfactory for the overwhelming majority of the participants of our SIG. And that's all I have today. I think that might be all my time, but I'm happy to take questions offline if anybody needs.
Oh, can we please do some Q&A?
All right.
Oh, yeah.
Can I beg our moderator for a couple of questions?
Sure. Who's speaking?
This is Wise with Samsung.
Okay, hi.
Hi there. So I think 2 questions. One was, and I'll tee them both up and you can see how much of them you want to cover. One was a question about Circle CI woes.
Yeah.
But I think there's been some rumbling about a CI SIG starting up, and that seems to be pretty directly strongly connected to what you're working. So, so that'd be one thing to comment on. And then the other is, I'd say the word operator missing from your deck is pretty notable. And, you know, I think this is, I think that operators, as far as I'm seeing it, kind of come in two flavors. One is like operator to use something that's kind of fundamental to Kubernetes itself. And then the other is there are operators popping up for doing more like application kinds of things for databases and other things. And I was wondering if your group is working specifically in operators or not.
Yeah, in terms of like app operators and app developers, definitely. Sorry, that's probably my bad. I should have mentioned that in the personas for sure. And so, yeah, there's some consensus on we want to talk about more best practices around the app operator and the app developer story as well.
Can you say a couple of more words about that? Yeah, and Circle CI.
Just to clarify, were you talking about operators as in like the Prometheus operator, or operators as in the people?
Oh, people.
Yeah, the question was about operators as in Prometheus operators, Redis operators, database operators, right? If you look at, there's many and it was just curious that the presentation talked about Helm and Helm charts and didn't have anything about the, I guess, can we call it a Kubernetes operator? But anyway, I know it's a new evolving space, but I think it's one that has some interest. And I was curious if your SIG is working or not.
Let me address that. So that's a really good question, first of all. No, there has not been a lot of emphasis on the operator story in this particular SIG thus far, only because nobody has brought it up yet. We have a list of like demos that we want to request. So it's just been on our to-do list to request an operator demo from, someone from CoreOS or someone who's, running the etcd operator. There is a Helm chart for the etcd operator, I know for sure, but I don't know if there's more Helm charts for other types of operators. We should have, that's a very good point, and we should be talking a little bit more about operators in our SIG. So thank you for that. On the CI note, I wasn't aware of the SIG CI, but I can definitely tell the person who's working on Circle CI from the Helm team about it, so they can go and check that out. I know we've been offered some resources from the Kubernetes team as well, so it's kind of just an ongoing effort.
I think, just to be clear about my question, I think I've heard some discussions about whether there should be a CI SIG or not, and since you're talking about maybe like where and how to split the app SIG, because I agree there's an awful lot there, it would be worth it to throw that into your list of considerations, I think.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. So then my question would be like, what is this SIG focusing on? Is it like CI in Kubernetes, or is it CI for Kubernetes and Kubernetes related projects?
I think it's app related CI, and we're probably are running things out of time, but maybe I can touch base with you.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome. Sorry to continue that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, so let's move on to the update from SIG Big Data, and then we'll pop back to our demo after that, because it looks like they're ready. All right, so SIG Big Data. Take it away.
Let me share my screen. Yep. Can you guys see this?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So SIG Big Data, we're fairly new. And there used to be a different iteration of this that I think David Oppenheimer started, but we revived this on the 1st of February, which is like 3 or 4 months ago. We've had 14 meetings so far, and lots of interest in. It started off kind of backwards. We were working on Spark natively on Kubernetes, where Spark clusters, like you could use a Spark installation to directly set up your job on Kubernetes, because that's what you can do with Mesos, Yarn, etc. And it grew to a point where we had to have some place where we meet and organize, and that's where SIG Big Data came in. And since then, it's grown in scope to also include other parts of the big data ecosystem like HDFS. So we do have some overlap with SIG-Apps and scheduling, because we do batch computing, which kind of falls in the scheduling space. So just our goal broadly is to focus on deploying and operating big data applications and mostly integrating them into Kubernetes well enough that people feel like, yes, Kubernetes is a great place to run not just your stateless workloads, but everything. So far, we have done some work on Spark and HDFS. Most of this stuff happens outside in external repositories. There are issues which map to it in the main repo, but mostly it's outside and external. And in the future, we're going to focus more on streaming and batch workloads. The Apache ecosystem, which is what most of the big data stack uses, is pretty vast and diverse. So part of our task is also to figure out which of those tools are worth investing in, because there are way too many of them. So far, yeah, like I said, external repo, we have about 10 contributors, lots of different companies. We have interest from Cloudera. Cloudera is building a third-party resource-based operator for some of their stuff. We're experimenting with it. Databricks is involved because they're the upstream Spark community, which is helping us get this upstreamed. Our efforts on Spark are probably going to go into Apache Spark itself. We have Google, that is us, and Hyben, Hyperpilot, lots of other companies, and we're still growing this list. Yeah, and we have 2 upcoming talks at Spark Summit, which is going to be fun. We have one introducing Spark on Kubernetes natively, and one more which is going to be HDFS, how to run it, different benchmarks, and just progress on that front. The issues I'd say that we're facing, at least the ones that I see, we have one weekly meeting where we discuss all of this, and it's really hard to scale. Our SIG is kind of different in that we don't typically do demos or anything of that sort. It's purely architecture and code most of the time. So I'm finding it a little hard to scale that. And it's onboarding new people is also pretty hard because it's like you assume a certain level of familiarity, and that needs to be there for the SIG meeting to be useful to the members themselves. And new members kind of find like, hey, where do I start? So typically it starts out with them emailing me, which is not great. Yeah. And in the future, yeah, trying to scale the efforts more. Hopefully we're going to have one in-person meeting at Spark Summit, and more in the future, just growing the scope. That's future plans. That's all. We're glad to take any questions.
Any questions? Doesn't quite look like it. All right, thank you very much for that update. All right, so it looks like our demo said that they were ready. So you guys feel free to take it away.
Hey guys, I'll just try and share the screen.
Awesome, we can see you now.
Awesome.
Cool. Thank you for your patience, guys. After all, it's 2017, so we have to fight Wayland and XOR. Anyway, we wanted to quickly show you what we have achieved in some whenever we are doing on it's like a sort of a side project where we are working on it. We call it OpenCompose. We have discussed about this at the last 2 KubeCons, in KubeCon Berlin and KubeCon Seattle. Also, we have presented once at the SIG-Apps meeting. So let me quickly tell you what it is. So we all know that Kubernetes is a very powerful tool, and it is powerful, and it is complex, and the complexity is because of its power. But we have seen internally and externally, lots of people, lots of developers just want to deploy their applications. We can think in terms of a machine learning developer who's writing is not happy. He's very happy writing his Python app and wants to deploy it on a Kubernetes. He really does not need to learn everything about Kubernetes API objects and things like that. So many of these developers are not system engineers, which Kubernetes developers themselves are, and very good at those. So should they have to learn the Kubernetes complexities? That's the question that we were trying to answer. and how can we make their lives easier. So this year at KubeCon Berlin, at the SIG-Apps meeting, and then there was a booth around this, and lots of corridor talks. And then obviously there were two keynotes. One was by Michelle, and the other one was by Joe Beda, in which Joe Beda basically talked about this particular problem and what needs to be done to solve this. He said in his talk, and it's a brilliant talk. If you haven't seen it, I really urge everyone to see it. He said, Kubernetes is a system software built by system engineers for system engineers. And this is the problem that we have seen it ourselves when we have talked to quite a few developers internally and externally. So what we did is, when we saw this, we tried to solve this problem and over the last few months. And our first try was, first we investigated a bunch of tools that existed. This is around 9 months back. One of them was Compose, and we started contributing, and we thought it was a great tool because it gave a great user experience that developers who are using Docker Compose, who had a mindset of Docker Compose, it really got them onto Kubernetes. So we really, when I say we, I mean me and my team started working on Kubernetes, on Compose, and we have been adding features on it. We have done a bunch of releases, but we soon reached a limit of it, and it's not the Compose's limit. It is the limit of the Docker Compose's language per se, and it's fair enough because it's made for that thing. It doesn't have one-to-one mapping to Kubernetes. So we were hacking features around using labels and whatnot, and that's a different story altogether. But we realized that it's reaching the limits that we would like to go beyond. That is the point when we started thinking, what can we do about it? And so we started thinking, and we used our learnings, and we thought it is a good idea to have a different language altogether with a great user experience, hopefully, which should be extensible. When I say great user experience, I really mean it should be user experience, simple user experience in terms of the configuration language that we will use and the tooling and the management that we will be having to generate stuff out of it. This higher level abstraction, so it should be higher level abstraction, hopefully, which would generate the actual Kubernetes objects so that the application can be deployed. The developer does not really need to know everything, probably almost nothing about Kubernetes. He or she should be concentrating only on their apps and basic configuration about their application. And we should definitely not become another resource, and hopefully have some more things that would make it easier. I'll delve on this topic a little bit later. So as I said, we have been working on this as a prototype. We have been talking to other people as well, getting some feedback, whatever we have. We have a quick demo about it. So let me show that, then move on to other stuff. Give us a second.
Hey guys, Shubham here. So I recorded a quick demo about OpenCompose, at least I tried to. So here's the demo. So this is how an OpenCompose spec looks like. Okay, a lot of these things are in the POC stage, but yeah, this gives a good idea of where we want to reach. Right. So this OpenCompose file is for a simple 2-container WordPress application. So the first one is the first service is database. And you can see that there are environment variables that are defined, and there are environment variables which we are mounting using secrets, which will be translated to Kubernetes secrets. This is the database file. Then down there, that's just Askenema messing up some of the output. But yeah, so this is the second service, which is the web service. Again, you can see there are environment variables, and there are ports. There are there were volume mounts in the database, and all of that. So all of your application definition goes into this. And in the end of the file, we have the root level volumes and secrets definition. Most of this should be self-explanatory. That's a volume we are creating of the given size. Those are the secrets. This will translate to the secret name in Kubernetes. These are the data keys inside the Kubernetes things. All sorts of encodings are supported. So this is the OpenCompose file. I'll quickly get out of the thing, and using the OpenCompose tool, if I can type correctly, I'll convert this file to Kubernetes objects. That's just some meshed output. Basically, the command is OpenCompose -f, the file name, convert, and -o, the directory to which I want to output I want to output the Kubernetes artifacts to. So once I run the command, all of these Kubernetes artifacts are generated, and using the spec that we just saw, and I'm just quickly gonna run a kubectl create -f. So all of these Kubernetes resources get created, and when I was recording, randomly my database decided to get stuck in container created. So I quickly will forward. In the meantime, I just restarted the pods, and right. So yeah. So by this point, I just restarted the pods again because one of my pods was stuck for some reason. Now I'll quickly check the logs for my web. Remember, this is a WordPress application, and my web container is running. The successful connection to database has been made. I'll get the service IP, and I'll quickly try to connect it using elinks. It's a command line browser thingy. So yeah, so the application is WordPress is running. I'll press enter. Okay, so this will give you the fancy WordPress GUI when you open in the browser. So that's the demo. Pradeep, you can take forward.
Thanks, Shubham. So as you see, we have been building the abstraction, as you call it, or the language, whatnot, but obviously there are challenges, and we have been working on some of them. We know that abstractions can be lossy or leaky. We're completely aware of that, and we are thinking what we could do about it. We also know that Kubernetes constructs and various attributes and API objects are there for a reason. So they have been discussed, there have been proposals, and that's why they are there. So who are we to say that this particular attribute should not be abstracted or should be abstracted out? But that's a challenge that we have to face. But we have to make a judgment out here, and the feedback will tell us later on that if we are right and wrong. But we have to make a judgment in terms of like, does a developer really need these things immediately? But and to mitigate this challenge, we also have to think in terms of how we can make this whole tool, the language spec, extensible. So that's the thing that we are working on. And then also we need to always remember that we should not make it another difficult resource to remember by the developer. So we shouldn't be shifting the problem domain. So obviously we should always keep it simple. I know it's a little bit of a redundant point, but that's very, very important and paramount for us. So what's the current status and next steps? You have seen what we have just demoed. If you go to the GitHub repository, the link is at the end of the slides. I'll show it to you. You will see that there is some documentation. The language, what we have built is more or less defined in the documentation, the README, and well, in the separate documentation folder, there are some examples. We are working on more examples as well, but there are other things. So I'm copying this from Joe Beda's talk again, but this is what I really liked about the talk, and one of the things he said was Larry Wall's statement that easy things should be easy and hard things should be made possible. And this is the goal that we want. We really want to keep things simple as well, and we don't want, just because we are trying to abstract out things, we don't want to miss out on the points or miss out on the features or the use cases wherein people with advanced use cases or intermediate use cases are ignored. So we don't want to do that. So keeping that in mind, as Michelle said, that there are various initiatives around it, like cube.libjson and whatnot. They're all each and every initiative is trying to have their own take on the problem. We are definitely talking to them. There has been discussions around the SIG-Apps. There have been some calls around it between a bunch of us, this team, CoreOS, Bitnami, Heptio, quite a few people of us, Box even. But anyway, so let's see where that goes. But our goal is to make sure that the thing is really helps developers. So we would, and we will, it's in our roadmap that we will add integrations with IDEs using language server protocol or whatever it is. With various tooling, we have some ideas about integrating it with Maven maybe, because there are a bunch of places where Java-based microservices would be can be deployed on various Kubernetes or OpenShift clusters. And we would like to think in terms of workflow management as well. That's where again extension comes in, so that developer can push his or her OpenCompose file or application file into the CI repository, and somebody else can take it and also add in a little bit of snippet YAML that would take it to our production and things like that. But and to be honest, we don't have all the answers yet. We don't know if our solution is the perfect solution. I don't think we have the monopoly over it, but we are working towards it, finding a good solution that works for as many cases as possible. And we are definitely hoping to get some feedback. This is where we generally hang out on SIG-Apps channel and various other Kubernetes Slack. We have a GitHub repository. We would love to see issues. We'd love to hear anything from you guys, any kind of feedback. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for the time, and thank you for being patient for our the demo. That's me and Shubham saying thank you.
All right, do we have any questions for the OpenCompose folks? All right, doesn't look like any questions. Thank you guys very much. All right, so now on to the tail end of our community meeting, notices. All right, so it looks like we have a notice about the time of SIG testing changing.
It's pretty much what it says in the meeting notes. SIG testing used to be at 9:30 a.m. Pacific. We've now moved it to 1 p.m. Pacific so as to avoid conflicts with all the other SIGs having their meetings on Tuesdays. So if you wanted to attend SIG Node, SIG Windows, or what is it, SIG Cluster Lifecycle, I think, or SIG Cluster Ops. One of the, sorry, I always get those two confused. If you were attending those and were sad that you couldn't attend SIG testing, now you can. So come join us at 1 p.m. Looking forward to seeing you all. Thanks.
Right. One of these days, we're all just going to need to get time turners.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo on that. I think like one of the hardest things to do in the SIG is accommodate all of the time zones and all of the people and like all of the community. And it is really hard. And, you know, as we're trying to be a global team, like, you know, the earlier comments about like the fact that some of the people and release managers are in Warsaw, you know, they're doing everything that they can. It's just scheduling is tough. And I'm beginning to find, at least on my side, that including everybody in all of the meetings is, you know, almost more untenable than just getting all the work done and all the information passed. So what's really great is, you know, it seems like everyone's trying to do things and trying to be flexible. And, you know, keeping on that ball is important. It's one of the things that makes Kubernetes great. So I don't know, that's my only point. It's good to be flexible, and just also to realize that just because someone's not in the room doesn't mean that they're not present and doing all of the work.
I totally agree with that. This was sort of some requested feedback. So just to, like, if you feel like you're not able to attend a SIG and you would really like to, please speak up about that. Let us know, because if people don't actually say something about it, we feel like maybe there's not a need to try that out. I know the community meeting had at one point, we tried like shuffling the time like once a month to a more Asia-friendly time zone. And I know that SIG Node alternates between one time and another to accommodate the Asia time zone on a bi-weekly basis. So we definitely have options to be flexible if there's demand for it. You know, specific asks were what precipitated this change for SIG testing. If you want to see what the full schedule is for all the SIGs, you can go check out the community GitHub repo. There's a SIG list thing there. There's also Kubernetes.io/community has this really awesome calendar that has all the different SIG meetings that you can add to your calendar. You could like import to your Google Calendar, which was what I used to figure out a time that didn't conflict on Tuesdays.
Oh, that's great. Is that in the minutes at all, or I didn't know about that?
No, if you go to Kubernetes.io and then click on the community tab up top, it's there.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I just wanted to chime in again and just wanted to say, especially like with the release manager updates, which are, I alluded earlier, are really important. It's, again, not that these people aren't doing everything they can, should, and more, because being a release manager is such a hard thing to do, especially for the patch releases, I think, when the attention's kind of focused on the new release.
Mhm.
But, you know, scheduling's hard. And I think the thing that we need to focus on is, you know, sometimes they don't need to be in the room, just get the info there, and, you know, that's it.
All right. Does anybody else have any last minute notices or items to bring up?
I have the one question. So we used to have the build cop, but all is the Google internal rotation, but we share with the community. So there's a lot of the requests. I saw those email come by, talk about to have the community people include as the build cop. And so right now, a lot of time we used to have the build cop to monitor all those test suite and relate to the release or not relate to release, and also for the PR builder, blocker, and the submit queue. And now looks like those scope and the role responsibility is not unclear defined lately. So I just threw this question, and should we just kick out a new process, like have the rotation among the community members and as the build cop, and redefine the role and the responsibility of the build cops? I don't know how to start this process. But,
I think it's a great idea. So I have two thoughts. Maybe that's something that falls under SIG testing. Two, maybe that's something that falls under SIG release, since there's sort of a person who's in charge of triaging testing bugs during the release. Three, the Kubernetes Leadership Summit, if you've been invited to that, I think that's a place for a lot of governance related issues, and how we sort of spread the load away from Google to the rest of the community is a really great forum for that discussion. And then four, I think the build cop ultimately has like great power, the ability to like push things into the repo to unblock the queue, or, you know, they can sort of go through all the safeguards. So you would really want to make sure the pool of people who are rotated through for that are highly trusted members of the community. So I agree with you. We should define what that role is, so we can define who's responsible enough to have it.
That's good. Good points. Yeah. So yeah, I think I like your idea. So so at least right now we just resume our current build cop as is, and rotation as is, and also kind of like the ad hoc for the responsibility, because I noticed that last couple weeks build cop didn't act like the old build cops. So because we have a lot of confusing, like duplicate effort and duplicate role. So, but there's certain things is not to have the coverage. We can talk about those in the lead summit.
Cool. Yeah.
I can send an email to the community and start discussing before the summit.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I guess I just threw out SIG release, since that seems to be a good forum where like we've already started breaking responsibility out from people in that, and I think that would be a great place to continue that.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks.
All right. Awesome. Does anybody else have any other last comments, notices, etc.? Otherwise, we are we're nearing the end of our time. So. All right. Doesn't look like any other comments. So thank you all for coming to this Kubernetes community meeting. Thank you to Jason for taking notes. And see you all next week.
Happy Thursday, all.